Bobby Driscoll. He was the golden boy of Disney in the late 1940s and early 1950s, starring in Song of the South, Treasure Island, and even voicing the mischievous boy who would never grow up, Peter Pan. Bobby Driscoll was a rare talent, winning a Special Academy Award for Outstanding Juvenile Actor, and seemed destined for a long career. But Disney's child star magic didn't last. As he grew older, Bobby found himself cast aside by the very studio that had made him famous. Rejected and typecast, he fell into a life of poverty and addiction. In March 1968, his body was found in an abandoned building in New York City. At just 31 years old, he had died alone from heart failure related to long-term drug abuse. Unidentified at the time, he was buried in a pauper's grave on Hart Island, New York. Only later, when his fingerprints were matched, did his family discover his fate. The voice of Peter Pan, the boy who wouldn't grow up, now rests in an unmarked grave, a haunting symbol of Hollywood's harshest realities. Bobby Buntrock. Sometimes tragedy strikes not in Hollywood, but in everyday life. Bobby Buntrock, who played the lovable Harold Baxter on the 1960s sitcom Hazel, grew up in front of millions of viewers. With his bright smile and boy-next-door charm, he seemed to embody innocence and fun on screen. But once the show ended, Bobby left acting behind and lived a quiet life away from the spotlight. Unlike many child stars, he did not struggle with fame. Instead, his fate was sealed by a heartbreaking accident. On April 7, 1974, while driving in South Dakota, Bobby's car stalled on a bridge. When he stepped out, a passing vehicle struck him, knocking him into the river below. He drowned at just 21 years old. For years, his grave was marked only by a simple metal plate, until fans raised money for a proper headstone. Today, Bobby Buntrock rests at Keystone Cemetery in Keystone, South Dakota. His story is remembered as one of life's cruel turns. A young man gone before he had the chance to truly grow up. Houston Tumlin. Movie fans will never forget the hilarious little boy in Talladega Nights, The Ballad of Ricky Bobby. That was Houston Tumlin, who played Walker Bobby, the loud-mouthed son of Will Ferrell's character. With his quick wit and over-the-top delivery, Houston stole scenes and left audiences in stitches, even though it was his only major acting role. After the film, Houston chose not to continue acting. Instead, he lived a quiet life in Alabama and later served proudly in the U.S. Army, including time with the 101st Airborne Division. But while he wore a smile on screen, in real life he battled PTSD and depression following his military service. On March 23, 2021, tragedy struck when Houston died by suicide at just 28 years old. Friends and family described him as a kind soul who carried invisible scars from his time in service. Houston Tumlin is buried at Valhalla Cemetery in Midfield, Alabama, remembered by fans for the laughter he brought and honored by fellow veterans for his service. Anton Yelchin. He was one of Hollywood's brightest young talents, known for both indie films and blockbuster roles. Anton Yelchin charmed audiences in movies like Charlie Bartlett, like Crazy, and most famously as Pavel Chekhov in the rebooted Star Trek franchise. With his depth, sensitivity, and versatility, Anton was widely regarded as one of the most gifted actors of his generation. But on June 19, 2016, a bizarre and tragic accident claimed his life. At his home in Los Angeles, Anton was found pinned by his own Jeep Grand Cherokee after it rolled backward down his steep driveway. The freak accident caused fatal injuries, and he died at just 27 years old. News of his passing shocked Hollywood and fans around the world, as his career had only just begun to flourish. Anton Yelchin is buried at Hollywood Forever Cemetery, where a life-sized statue now stands over his grave. His legacy lives on not only through his films but also through the Anton Yelchin Foundation, created to support young artists facing career challenges. Karl Alfalfa Switzer. With his cowlick hair, squeaky singing, and constant mischief, audiences of the 1930s instantly recognized the lovable troublemaker from The Little Rascals. That boy was Karl Alfalfa Switzer, one of the most iconic child stars of the era. His off-key serenades and comedic timing made him a fan favorite, cementing Alfalfa as a household name for generations. But childhood fame came with its shadows. As Karl grew older, he struggled to break free from the role that defined him. Typecast and unable to secure steady acting jobs, he eventually stepped away from Hollywood and worked a variety of odd jobs to get by. Fame that once lifted him now felt like a burden he could never outrun. On January 21st, 1959, tragedy struck. During a heated argument over a small debt of just $50, Carl was shot and killed. He was only 31 years old. His death was ruled a justifiable homicide, but the circumstances remain controversial to this day. Carl Switzer was laid to rest at Hollywood Forever Cemetery in Los Angeles, not far from his on-screen sweetheart Darla Hood. Together, their legacies remind us of the bittersweet fate of many child stars. Michelle Thomas. Michelle Thomas was a familiar face to millions during the 80s and 90s. She lit up screens as Justine Phillips on The Cosby Show and later as the adoring Myra Monkhouse on Family Matters. With her radiant smile and infectious energy, Michelle quickly became a fan favorite, embodying warmth and charm that made audiences fall in love with her. Beyond acting, Michelle was also pursuing a career in music, showcasing her versatility and passion for the arts. But her promising life took a heartbreaking turn when she was diagnosed with a rare and aggressive form of stomach cancer, an intra-abdominal desmoplastic small round cell tumor. Despite her strength and determination, Michelle passed away in December 1998 at just 30 years old. Her untimely death left fans devastated, mourning the loss of a star whose career was only just beginning to soar. Michelle Thomas was laid to rest at Rosedale Cemetery in Montclair, New Jersey, remembered forever as a beloved talent gone too soon. Cameron Boyce. For a new generation, Cameron Boyce was nothing short of a star. He grew up on the Disney Channel, first charming audiences as Luke Ross in Jessie and later as Carlos DeVille in the Descendants movie franchise. With his boundless energy, natural charisma, and incredible dancing skills, Cameron became one of Disney's most beloved young talents. But beyond the screen, Cameron was admired for his kind heart and philanthropy. He dedicated his platform to raising awareness and funds for humanitarian causes, inspiring fans with his compassion and drive to make the world better. That's why his sudden death in July 2019, at just 20 years old, came as such a devastating shock. Cameron tragically passed away in his sleep due to a seizure caused by epilepsy, a medical condition he had been diagnosed with. The world lost not only a gifted performer, but also a young man committed to giving back. To honor his legacy, the Cameron Boyce Foundation was created to continue his charitable efforts. His ashes were returned to his family, making his final resting place a private one. But his memory continues to shine brightly in the hearts of millions. Robert Knox. Robert Knox was a rising British actor on the brink of worldwide recognition. He secured the role of Marcus Belby in Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince and was set to reprise the role in the next film. For a young talent, this was the opportunity of a lifetime, a chance to be part of one of the biggest franchises in cinema history. But just days after completing his scenes in May 2008, Robert's promising future was cut short in the most tragic way. At only 18 years old, he was stabbed to death outside a pub in Sidcup, London, while bravely intervening to protect his younger brother during an altercation. His final act was one of courage, but his death highlighted the devastating reality of knife crime in the UK. A life full of talent and potential was taken far too soon, leaving behind family, friends, and fans grieving for what could have been. Robert Knox was laid to rest close to home, buried at St. John the Evangelist Churchyard in Sidcup, London, where his memory lives on as a reminder of both his bravery and the fragility of young lives. Heather O'Rourke. With her angelic face and unforgettable line, "They're here," Heather O'Rourke became an instant horror icon. As Carol and Freeling in the Poltergeist trilogy, she captivated audiences with a natural charm far beyond her years. Heather's performances made her one of the most recognizable child stars of the 1980s, carrying an eerie innocence that defined the franchise. But behind her bright screen presence, tragedy struck far too early. In early 1988, during post-production for Poltergeist 3, Heather suddenly fell gravely ill. On February 1, 1988, at just 12 years old, she died during surgery. The official cause was cardiac arrest brought on by septic shock, the result of a misdiagnosed congenital bowel obstruction. Her death stunned Hollywood and fueled speculation of a so-called poltergeist curse. Her passing left fans heartbroken, mourning a young star who had enchanted millions in such a short time. Heather O'Rourke is buried at Westwood Village Memorial Park Cemetery in Los Angeles, a peaceful resting place for the little girl whose haunting words and radiant smile became etched in film history. Dana Plato. As Kimberly Drummond on the hit sitcom Different Strokes, Dana Plato became one of the most recognizable teenage faces in America. With her natural charm and sweet presence, she helped make the show one of television's most beloved family comedies of the late 70s and 80s. For millions of viewers, Dana felt like part of their own household. But once the show ended, her life took a much darker turn. Typecast and struggling to find new roles, Dana battled personal demons off-screen. Her years after fame were marked by financial troubles, run-ins with the law, and a painful struggle with drug and alcohol addiction that played out in public. On May 8, 1999, just one day after an emotional radio interview in which she declared she had finally found sobriety, Dana died at the age of 34 from an overdose of a painkiller and a muscle relaxant. Her death was ruled a suicide, shocking fans who still remembered her as the bright, smiling teenager from TV. Following her wishes, Dana Plato was cremated, and her ashes were scattered over the Pacific Ocean. A private and quiet end to a life that had been lived so publicly, she remains a tragic reminder of the difficult transition from child stardom to adulthood. Brad Renfro burst onto the Hollywood scene with a breakout performance in the 1994 legal thriller The Client. Just 11 years old at the time, his raw talent and screen presence wowed audiences and critics alike. Quickly, Brad was hailed as one of the most promising young actors of his generation, going on to star in films like The Cure and Apt Pupil. He had the rare ability to bring authenticity and intensity to every role he played. But behind the early success, Brad's life was unraveling. Thrust into fame at such a young age, he struggled with the pressures of Hollywood and soon fell into a long and public battle with drugs and alcohol. His addiction issues began in his teenage years and led to arrests, rehab stints, and a career that never lived up to its potential. On January 15, 2008, at just 25 years old, Brad Renfro was found dead in his Los Angeles apartment from an accidental overdose of heroin and morphine. Far from the bright lights of Hollywood, Brad was brought back to his home state of Tennessee. He now rests at Red House Cemetery in Blaine, Tennessee, a stark reminder of a young star whose immense talent was tragically overshadowed by addiction. Jonathan Brandis. In the early 90s, Jonathan Brandis was the very definition of a teen idol. After first making waves in Stephen King's TV miniseries It, 1990, he rose to superstardom as Lucas Wolenzak, the teen prodigy on the sci-fi series seaQuest DSV. With his boyish good looks, charm, and undeniable talent, Jonathan graced the covers of countless teen magazines and had a devoted fanbase that followed his every move. But when seaQuest DSV ended, Jonathan found it difficult to transition into adult roles. Once a household name, he grew frustrated as the offers dwindled and struggled with the painful reality of a fading career. Friends later shared that he battled depression and was disheartened by the direction of his life. On November 12, 2003, at just 27 years old, Jonathan Brandis died by suicide in Los Angeles. No note was found, leaving behind only heartbreak for those who knew and loved him. Jonathan was cremated, and his ashes were returned to his family, leaving no public resting place for fans to visit. A bright star who shone so vividly in his youth, he remains a poignant reminder of how quickly fame can fade and how deeply its loss can wound. Dana Hill. Dana Hill was a distinctive child actress whose unique look and voice set her apart in Hollywood. A battle with childhood diabetes stunted her growth, giving her the appearance of a much younger girl and allowing her to convincingly play child roles well into her teens. She gained fame with her performance as Audrey Griswold in National Lampoon's European Vacation, and later became a prolific voice actress, most memorably as Max Goof in Disney's Goof Troop. But her lifelong fight with diabetes took a heavy toll. Complications from the disease grew more severe as she aged, eventually leading to a paralytic stroke. Dana soon fell into a diabetic coma, and on July 15, 1996, she tragically passed away at just 32 years old. For fans who grew up with her raspy voice and heartfelt performances, her loss was deeply felt. Following her passing, Dana Hill was cremated, and her ashes were scattered at sea. Though her life was short, her voice and characters remain forever woven into the childhood memories of those who watched and listened to her work. River Phoenix. River Phoenix was more than just a teen idol. He was a generational talent. From his breakout in Stand By Me to his Oscar-nominated role in Running on Empty and his unforgettable performance in My Own Private Idaho, River captivated audiences with his depth, vulnerability, and authenticity. He wasn't only an actor but also a musician and activist, admired for his artistry and his compassion. At the height of his fame, tragedy struck. On October 31st, 1993, River collapsed outside the Viper Room nightclub in Hollywood, where he had been performing. He died at just 23 years old from a drug overdose, leaving the entertainment world in shock. His sudden passing became one of Hollywood's most haunting cautionary tales about the pressures of fame. River Phoenix was cremated, and his ashes were scattered privately at his family's ranch in Micanopy, Florida. Though his life was brief, his performances continue to inspire, cementing his legacy as one of the most gifted actors of his generation. Tara Correa McMullen. Tara Correa McMullen's career may have been short, but her impact was unforgettable. She first appeared in guest spots before landing her breakout role as Graciela Reyes, a gang member on the drama Judging Amy. Her performance was praised for its authenticity, with critics noting that she brought a raw and emotional realism to the screen. At just 16 years old, Tara seemed poised for a long and promising future in Hollywood. But life began to imitate art in the most tragic way. Off-screen, Tara found herself spending time with real gang members, and her surroundings pulled her into a dangerous world. On October 21, 2005, in Englewood, California, Tara was caught in a drive-by shooting. She was not the intended target, but the bullet struck her and ended her life instantly. At only 16 years old, the young actress's story came to a devastating close before it had even truly begun. Tara Correa McMullen is buried at Forest Lawn Memorial Park in Hollywood Hills, her name etched among so many other beloved stars. A young talent who brought truth to her roles, Tara's short life remains a reminder of how fragile youthful promise can be. Josh Ryan Evans. Josh Ryan Evans may have stood just 3 feet tall, but his presence on screen was larger than life. Born with achondroplasia, a form of dwarfism, Josh faced immense medical challenges throughout his life, yet he turned them into strength, using his unique appearance and personality to bring unforgettable characters to the screen. His most famous role was Timmy Lennox, the living doll on the soap opera Passions. With his wide-eyed innocence and charm, he became a fan favorite, earning both critical acclaim and public affection. Josh also made a memorable appearance as the young Grinch in How the Grinch Stole Christmas alongside Jim Carrey, cementing himself as a beloved figure in pop culture. But behind the laughter he brought, Josh lived with ongoing health struggles. On August 5, 2002, at just 20 years old, he passed away while undergoing surgery for a congenital heart condition. In a chilling coincidence, the episode of Passions airing that very day showed his character Timmy dying, leaving fans devastated by the surreal timing. Josh Ryan Evans was laid to rest at Forest Lawn Memorial Park in Hollywood Hills, remembered forever as the little man with a giant heart who made millions smile. Anissa Jones. Anissa Jones became a household name as the adorable Buffy Davis on the hit 1960s sitcom Family Affair. With her signature glasses and constant companion, the Mrs. Beasley doll, she embodied innocence and charm, winning the hearts of millions of viewers. At just 6 years old, she rose to fame, becoming one of television's most beloved child stars of the era. But as the show ended, Anissa struggled to transition into a normal life. Typecast and unable to escape the image of Buffy, Hollywood offered her few new opportunities. By her teenage years, she grew increasingly troubled, falling into the dangerous world of drugs. The pressures of early fame and the lack of support after the spotlight dimmed left her vulnerable to addiction. On August 28, 1976, tragedy struck when Anissa was found dead at a friend's home in California. The cause was an accidental overdose of cocaine, PCP, and other drugs. She was just 18 years old, her childhood stardom ending in heartbreak. Anissa Jones was cremated, and her ashes were scattered over the Pacific Ocean, leaving no permanent resting place. Her short life remains a cautionary tale of the dark side of child fame. Bridget Anderson. Bridget Anderson charmed audiences in the early 1980s with her breakout role in the heartwarming film Savannah Smiles. At just 6 years old, she displayed a natural acting ability and an infectious screen presence that won over critics and moviegoers alike. Many saw her as one of Hollywood's most promising young stars, destined for a long career filled with memorable performances. As she grew older, however, Bridget struggled to make the difficult transition from child actress to adult roles. Typecasting and the pressures of the industry left her frustrated, and she began to drift away from acting. Unfortunately, Her personal life soon mirrored the downward spiral of many former child stars. She developed a severe heroin addiction, which brought legal troubles and repeated failed attempts at recovery. The bright spark that had once defined her early career began to dim under the weight of addiction. On May 18, 1997, Bridget Anderson was found dead in her Los Angeles apartment from an accidental drug overdose. She was only 21 years old, her once bright future tragically cut short. Bridget was cremated, and her ashes were returned to her family, leaving no public resting place for fans to honor her memory. Thuy Trang. For millions of kids in the 1990s, Thuy Trang was a superhero. She made television history as Trini Kwan, the original Yellow Ranger on Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. As one of the first Asian American superheroes on American TV, Thuy became a role model for countless young viewers, admired not just for her martial arts moves, but also for her warmth, kindness, and strength on screen. After leaving the series in 1994, she pursued a career in film, appearing in projects like The Crow, City of Angels. Though her time in Hollywood was brief, she remained beloved by fans who saw her as a groundbreaking figure during their childhood. Tragically, her life was cut short in a devastating accident. On September 3, 2001, Thuy was a passenger in a car traveling on a California highway when the driver lost control. The vehicle went off the road, and Thuy was killed instantly in the crash. She was just 27 years old. Her sudden passing left fans heartbroken, mourning not only a childhood hero, but also a young woman whose career was only beginning. Thuy Trang is buried at Rose Hills Memorial Park in Whittier, California, where fans still visit to honor her legacy. Gary Coleman, with his unforgettable catchphrase, "Watch you talkin' 'bout Willis?" Gary Coleman became one of the biggest child stars in television history. As Arnold Jackson on Different Strokes, his comedic timing and infectious personality made him a household name throughout the late 70s and 80s. Despite standing just 4 feet 8 inches tall due to a congenital kidney disease, Gary's charisma made him a giant in pop culture. But behind the laughter, his personal life was full of hardship. Years of medical treatments left him struggling with health issues, while mismanagement and exploitation led to financial ruin. After the show ended, Gary had difficulty finding steady acting work and was often caught in public controversies and legal battles. The pressures of fame that had once lifted him up became the very weight that dragged him down. On May 28, 2010, Gary Coleman died at the age of 42 after suffering a brain hemorrhage caused by a fall at his Utah home. Following disputes over his estate, he was eventually cremated, with his ashes kept privately, away from the public eye. Though his later years were turbulent, Gary Coleman remains forever remembered as the witty, lovable Arnold Jackson, the child star who left millions smiling. Ricky Nelson. Ricky Nelson grew up before America's eyes on the classic TV series The Adventures of Ozzie and Harriet, where he appeared alongside his famous family. But he wasn't just a sitcom star. Ricky became one of the first true teen idols of the 1950s, rivaling Elvis Presley with hits like Hello, Mary Lou and Travelin' Man. His smooth voice and Boy Next Door looks launched him into superstardom, and he later helped pioneer the country rock sound, leaving an important mark on music history. As the years passed, Ricky continued performing, staying dedicated to his music career. On December 31, 1985, while traveling to a New Year's Eve concert in Texas, tragedy struck. The plane carrying Ricky, his fiancée, and several band members crashed after a fire broke out mid-flight. All aboard were killed. He was only 45 years old, and the shocking accident stunned fans around the world. Ricky Nelson was laid to rest at Forest Lawn Memorial Park in the Hollywood Hills, California. Though his life ended far too soon, his songs and legacy live on, reminding us of a star who bridged television and rock and roll like few others ever have. Lee Thompson Young. For many kids growing up in the late 90s, Lee Thompson Young was a household name. He rose to fame as the lead character in the Disney Channel series The Famous Jet Jackson, where he played a teenager who balanced ordinary life with his role as a TV action hero. Lee's natural charisma and relatability made him a role model for countless young viewers, and he quickly became one of Disney's brightest stars. Unlike many child actors, Lee successfully transitioned into adult roles. He appeared in films like Friday Night Lights and later starred as Detective Barry Frost on the popular TNT series Rizzoli and Isles. To the public, Lee seemed well-adjusted and successful, with a career still climbing. But behind the scenes, he struggled with inner battles. On August 19, 2013, Lee was found dead in his Los Angeles home. He had taken his own life at just 29 years old. His family later revealed that he had been quietly fighting bipolar disorder and depression. Lee Thompson Young was laid to rest at Evergreen Cemetery in Columbia, South Carolina, remembered not only as a gifted actor, but also as a kind soul whose life ended far too soon. Ashley Aston Moore. Ashley Aston Moore became a beloved face of the 1990s thanks to her role as Chrissy DeWitt in the coming-of-age film Now and Then. Starring alongside Christina Ricci, Thora Birch, and Gabby Hoffman, she brought sweetness and sincerity to the role of the thoughtful, kind-hearted Chrissy. The film became a cult favorite, and Ashley's performance remains a cherished part of many childhoods. But after her big-screen success, Ashley stepped away from acting, choosing a quieter life away from Hollywood. Unlike many of her peers, she never chased further fame, preferring to live outside the spotlight. Sadly, her life took a tragic turn. On December 10, 2007, at just 26 years old, Ashley died in British Columbia, Canada. Reports indicated her death was due to an accidental heroin overdose, a stark reminder of how addiction can touch even those who seem far removed from the chaos of fame. Because she lived her adult life privately, few details about her later years are known. It is believed she was cremated, with her ashes given to her family, keeping her final resting place private. For fans, Ashley Aston Moore will always remain the sweet, thoughtful Chrissy who captured hearts in one unforgettable film. Raphael Coleman. Raphael Coleman first captured audiences as the mischievous Eric Brown in the 2005 family film Nanny McPhee. With his fiery red hair and playful energy, he stood out among the child cast, quickly becoming a fan favorite. For many, his role was a highlight of the film, and it seemed like the beginning of a long acting career. But as he grew older, Raphael's passions led him down a very different path. Instead of pursuing Hollywood fame, he dedicated his life to environmental activism. He became a prominent member of Extinction Rebellion, a global movement fighting climate change, and often spoke out about the urgent need to protect the planet. His transformation from child star to activist inspired many who admired his courage to live for a cause greater than himself. On February 7, 2020, tragedy struck when Raphael collapsed suddenly while jogging. He was only 25 years old, with no prior health issues, leaving friends, family, and supporters shocked and devastated. In honor of his environmental dedication, Raphael was given a green funeral and is buried in a woodland cemetery in North London. His short but impactful life left behind not just childhood memories, but a legacy of fighting for the earth. Austin Majors. Austin Majors grew up on television, winning audiences over as Theo Sipowicz, the young son of Detective Andy Sipowicz, on the acclaimed drama NYPD Blue. From 1999 to 2004, he appeared in nearly 50 episodes, earning praise for his natural performances alongside a cast of seasoned actors. For fans of the series, Austin became a familiar face as the bright, innocent child in a show otherwise filled with grit and tension. After his run on NYPD Blue, Austin continued acting in smaller roles and voice work, appearing in projects like Treasure Planet. As he grew older, he stepped away from the spotlight, pursuing his education and enrolling in film school with hopes of building a career behind the camera. But his adult life would take a darker turn. On February 11, 2023, Austin was found dead in a Los Angeles homeless housing facility. He was just 27 years old. The coroner later confirmed the cause as an accidental fentanyl overdose, another life claimed by the ongoing opioid crisis. Austin Majors was cremated, with his ashes returned to his family. Though his later years were troubled, fans remember him as the child actor who grew up on one of television's most iconic dramas. Corey Haim. Corey Haim was one of the ultimate teen idols of the 1980s. With his boyish charm and natural talent, he rose to fame in films like Lucas, License to Drive, and the cult classic The Lost Boys, where he starred alongside his frequent co-star and friend Corey Feldman. Together, they became known as the Two Coreys, a pop culture phenomenon that defined a generation of young moviegoers. Corey seemed destined for a long career as one of Hollywood's brightest stars. But behind the fame, Corey struggled with personal demons. Introduced to drugs at an early age, he faced a lifelong battle with addiction. His substance abuse overshadowed his career, leading to erratic behavior, financial troubles, and difficulty maintaining steady work. Despite repeated attempts at comebacks and rehab, Corey could never fully escape his struggles. On March 10, 2010, Corey Haim died in Burbank, California, at just 38 years old. While many initially suspected an overdose, the coroner later ruled his death was caused by pneumonia, though years of drug use had severely weakened his health. Corey Haim was laid to rest in his native Canada, buried at Pard's Shalom Cemetery in Vaughan, Ontario. A beloved teen star, remembered for both his talent and his tragic fall. Jansen Panettiere. Jansen Panettiere, the younger brother of actress Hayden Panettiere, began his career as a child voice actor in animated films like Ice Age, The Meltdown, and later appeared in television shows including Even Stevens and The X's. With his natural charm and easygoing presence, he carved out his own identity in Hollywood, apart from his sister's fame. Over the years, Jansen shifted his focus toward painting, where he found a creative outlet that reflected his vibrant and complex personality. Though he continued acting in smaller projects, art became his true passion. He often shared his colorful, expressive works, using painting as a way to cope with the challenges of anxiety and depression. His honesty about his mental health struggles made him relatable to fans who admired his openness and creativity. Tragedy struck on February 19, 2023, when Jansen was found dead in his New York apartment. He was only 28 years old. His family later confirmed the cause of death was an enlarged heart, an unexpected condition that ended his young life far too soon. Jansen's final arrangements were kept private by his family. He is remembered as a gifted artist, a compassionate soul, and a talent gone too early. Christopher Pettiot. Christopher Pettiot was a young actor whose charisma and talent left a strong impression in the early 1990s. He is best remembered for his role as Zach Crandall, the rebellious skateboarder in the comedy Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead. He also appeared as the surfer kid Jesse James in Kathryn Bigelow's cult classic Point Break. With his laid-back charm and natural screen presence, Christopher seemed poised to become a major star of his generation. But like many young actors, Christopher faced difficulties as he transitioned into adulthood. The pressures of Hollywood weighed heavily on him, and he turned to drugs as a way to cope. Despite his early promise, his career slowed, and he found himself increasingly caught in the destructive cycle of addiction. Friends later recalled that he had struggled for years to break free. On April 12, 2000, Christopher Pettiot died in Los Angeles from an accidental drug overdose. He was only 24 years old, another life cut short by the dangers of addiction. Christopher was cremated, and his ashes were scattered at sea off the coast of Santa Monica, California. Though his career was brief, his performances remain a reminder of his undeniable talent and charm. Jason Davis. Jason Davis grew up in Hollywood, the grandson of billionaire studio head Marvin Davis. But while his family name carried power, Jason made his own mark as a performer. He was best known as the lovable voice of Mikey Bloomberg on Disney's hit animated series Recess. With his gentle, warm tone, Jason gave life to one of the most beloved cartoon characters of the 1990s, endearing himself to millions of children around the world. Off-screen, however, Jason's life was far more complicated. He struggled for years with substance abuse, a battle he did not shy away from publicly. He even appeared on Celebrity Rehab with Dr. Drew, openly confronting his addiction and later co-founding an organization to support those facing similar struggles. Despite his efforts, the grip of addiction was a constant challenge. On February 16, 2020, Jason Davis died in Los Angeles at just 35 years old. The cause was later revealed as the effects of fentanyl, a powerful drug at the center of the ongoing opioid epidemic. Jason Davis is buried at Pierce Brothers Westwood Village Memorial Park in Los Angeles, where fans remember the gentle voice behind Mikey and the man who fought bravely against his demons. Rusty Hamer. Rusty Hamer became a familiar face to American families as Rusty Williams on The Danny Thomas Show, also known as Make Room for Daddy. For 11 seasons, audiences watched him grow up on screen, the freckle-faced boy who brought humor and heart to one of the most popular sitcoms of the 1950s and 60s. His natural comedic timing and lovable personality made him a standout among television's early child stars. But when the series ended, Rusty found himself trapped by typecasting. Casting directors only saw him as Rusty, and offers for meaningful roles dried up. Without steady acting work and lacking other career paths, he struggled to find his place outside the entertainment industry. Over time, depression and disillusionment consumed him, and his once bright childhood fame became a painful memory. On January 18, 1990, Rusty Hamer died by suicide at his home in DeRidder, Louisiana. He was 42 years old, another child star lost to the unforgiving realities of fame and its aftermath. Following his death, Rusty was cremated, and his ashes were given to his family. His story remains one of the earliest and most heartbreaking examples of how Hollywood often abandoned its child actors once the cameras stopped rolling. Philip McKeon. Philip McKeon grew up in front of America as Tommy Hyatt on the long-running sitcom Alice. From 1976 to 1985, audiences watched him transform from a boy into a young man, playing the son of Linda Lavin's title character. His charm, warmth, and natural presence made him a fan favorite, and he became a familiar face to millions of households during the show's 9-year run. After Alice ended, Philip continued working in the entertainment industry, though mostly behind the camera. He directed and produced projects and eventually found a steady career in radio news. Unlike many child stars, he managed to transition into a quieter, more private life, focusing on his passions away from Hollywood's glare. Still, fans of Alice always remembered him as the sweet, reliable Tommy. In December 2019, Philip McKeon passed away at the age of 55 after battling a long but undisclosed illness. His family, including his sister, actress Nancy McKeon, chose to keep the details of his passing private. Philip's final resting place was also kept private, honoring his wish to be remembered not just as a television star, but as a beloved son, brother, and friend. His legacy continues through the joy he brought to audiences. Matthew Garber. Matthew Garber captured hearts worldwide as Michael Banks in Disney's timeless classic Mary Poppins. With his mischievous grin and boyish charm, he perfectly embodied the curious young brother who went on magical adventures with Mary and Bert. Alongside co-star Karen Doutrice, Matthew became one of Disney's most beloved child actors of the 1960s. He also appeared in 2 other Disney films, The 3 Lives of Thomasina and The Gnome Mobile, before retiring from acting as a teenager. Away from the spotlight, Matthew lived quietly, enjoying travel and adventure. But his life took a tragic turn in 1976 while he was abroad. He contracted hepatitis, which led to pancreatitis, a severe complication that proved fatal. On June 13, 1977, Matthew Garber passed away in London at just 21 years old. His sudden death shocked fans who still remembered the cheerful boy from Cherry Tree Lane. Matthew was cremated at Golders Green Crematorium in London, where a memorial plaque honors him. In 2004, Disney posthumously recognized him as a Disney legend, ensuring his place in history as the boy who helped bring one of the most magical films of all time to life. Dustin Diamond. Dustin Diamond became a pop culture icon as Samuel Screech, Powers on the hit sitcom Saved by the Bell. For more than a decade, across multiple spin-offs and reboots, he embodied the nerdy but lovable character whose quirky humor and awkward charm made him a fan favorite. To an entire generation of viewers, Screech was unforgettable, and Dustin's performance ensured the role would live on in TV history. But away from the bright lights of Bayside High, Dustin's life was far more complicated. Typecast after the show ended, he struggled to find meaningful acting roles. Financial troubles, legal issues, and public controversies followed, making headlines that often overshadowed his earlier success. Despite attempts at comebacks, he remained closely tied to the character he once played so well. In early 2021, Dustin was diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer. The illness progressed rapidly, and just 3 weeks later, on February 1, 2021, he passed away at the age of 44. Fans around the world were stunned at how quickly his condition had taken him. Dustin Diamond was cremated, with his ashes divided between his father and his longtime girlfriend. Though his later years were turbulent, his place in pop culture as the unforgettable Screech remains secure. Andrew Koenig. Andrew Koenig grew up around Hollywood, the son of actor Walter Koenig, famous for his role as Chekhov on Star Trek. Andrew found his own success on television in the late 1980s, playing Richard Boner Stabone, the goofy best friend of Mike Seaver, on the hit sitcom Growing Pains. With his comedic timing and likable personality, Andrew quickly became a fan favorite, adding humor and warmth to the show. After leaving Growing Pains, Andrew continued acting, but also developed a passion for activism and humanitarian causes. He traveled extensively and became deeply involved in raising awareness for human rights issues, particularly in Burma. While his public life reflected compassion and purpose, privately Andrew struggled with severe depression. In February 2010, after being reported missing in Vancouver, Andrew's body was discovered in Stanley Park. He had died by suicide at just 41 years old. His death shocked fans and friends, and his father later revealed that Andrew had battled depression for much of his life. Andrew Koenig was cremated, and his ashes were returned to his family. Though his life ended tragically, he is remembered both for the laughter he brought to television and for his dedication to helping others. Sawyer Sweeten. Sawyer Sweeten grew up before America's eyes as Jeffrey Barone on the hit sitcom Everybody Loves Raymond. Alongside his real-life twin brother, Sullivan, and sister Madeline, Sawyer was part of the fictional Barone family for the show's entire 9-season run. From the time he was just 16 months old, he brought innocence and authenticity to his role, becoming a beloved part of one of television's most popular family comedies. When the series ended in 2005, Sawyer quietly stepped away from acting. Unlike many child stars, he chose a life out of the spotlight, living privately and spending time with his family. But behind the scenes, Sawyer struggled with personal battles that few around him fully understood. On April 23, 2015, just weeks before his 20th birthday, Sawyer died by suicide while visiting family in Texas. The shocking news devastated fans and former castmates, many of whom remembered him as a kind, gentle young man who had been like family both on and off the screen. Sawyer Sweeten was laid to rest at Garden of Memories Cemetery in El Campo, Texas. His passing serves as a heartbreaking reminder of how difficult life after childhood fame can be. Glenn Quinn. Irish-born actor Glenn Quinn made his mark on American television with his role as Mark Healy, Becky's husband, on the long-running sitcom Roseanne. His charm, good looks, and on-screen chemistry with the cast made him a fan favorite throughout the 1990s. Later, he found new success in the supernatural world of television, starring as Alan Francis Doyle on Angel, the spin-off of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Glenn's talent and charisma shone through in every role, earning him a loyal following. But behind his professional success, Glenn was fighting private battles. He struggled for years with a severe heroin addiction that took a devastating toll on his career and his health. Despite periods of recovery and attempts at rebuilding his life, the weight of addiction continued to follow him. On December 3, 2002, Glenn was found dead at a friend's home in North Hollywood from an accidental heroin overdose. He was only 32 years old, his promising career and vibrant life cut tragically short. Glenn Quinn's body was returned to Ireland, where he was laid to rest at St. Fintan's Cemetery in Sutton, Dublin. Fans on both sides of the Atlantic continue to remember him as a gifted actor who left the world far too soon. Jack Wilde. Jack Wilde became an international sensation at just 15 years old when he starred as the cheeky, artful Dodger in the 1968 film adaptation of Oliver. His performance was so remarkable that it earned him an Academy Award nomination, along with Golden Globe and BAFTA nominations. With his boyish charm, energetic spirit, and undeniable talent, Jack seemed destined for a long and successful career in film and television. But fame at such a young age came with heavy burdens. By his teens, Jack had already fallen into a destructive cycle of alcoholism and smoking, habits that would consume much of his adult life. His once promising career began to fade as his personal struggles overshadowed his acting. Though he continued to work sporadically, the opportunities were never as bright as they had once been. Years of heavy drinking and smoking eventually caught up with him, leading to a devastating battle with oral cancer. In the later years of his illness, Jack even lost the ability to speak. On March 1, 2006, he passed away at the age of 53. Jack Wilde was cremated, and his ashes were scattered in a field near his home in Bedfordshire, England. He is remembered as the boy who once stole hearts worldwide with his unforgettable smile and remarkable talent. Tommy Rettig. Tommy Rettig became a household name in the 1950s as Jeff Miller, the all-American boy on the beloved television series Lassie. For 4 seasons, audiences watched him share adventures with the famous collie, making him one of the most recognizable child actors of his time. With his wholesome image and natural charm, Tommy perfectly embodied the role of the innocent, good-hearted farm boy. But like many child stars, Tommy struggled to find his footing once he outgrew the part that made him famous. The transition into adult roles proved difficult, and after leaving Hollywood, he faced legal and financial troubles. For years, he drifted, searching for stability outside the entertainment industry. Eventually, Tommy reinvented himself in a surprising new way. He became a successful computer software engineer, working on early database systems long before they were commonplace. In this field, he found both success and peace, far removed from the Hollywood spotlight that had defined his youth. On February 15, 1996, Tommy Rettig died suddenly of a heart attack at his California home. He was just 54 years old. Following his passing, he was cremated, and his ashes were scattered at sea. Tommy Rettig's story remains a bittersweet reminder of a child star who found fulfillment far beyond the screen. Darla Hood. Darla Hood became a beloved figure of early Hollywood as the leading lady of the Our Gang comedies, better known to audiences as the Little Rascals. With her sweet singing voice, confident charm, and playful personality, she was the perfect foil to the mischievous boys around her. Whether trading lines with Alfalfa or stealing scenes with her wide-eyed expressions, Darla was a standout and helped make the series one of the most enduring franchises of its era. After leaving Our Gang, Darla transitioned into a successful career in music, performing as a singer and later working behind the scenes in the entertainment world. She remained proud of her child star legacy and often attended reunions and fan events, where audiences still adored her decades later. In 1979, while organizing a cast reunion for Our Gang, Darla underwent what was expected to be a routine appendectomy. Tragically, she contracted acute hepatitis from a blood transfusion during the surgery, which led to heart failure. On June 13, 1979, she died suddenly at the age of 47, shocking fans who still remembered her as the little girl with the big voice. Darla Hood was laid to rest at Hollywood Forever Cemetery in Los Angeles, where admirers continue to visit the child star who brought joy to millions. Judith Barcy. With her soulful eyes and remarkable talent, Judith Barcy was one of Hollywood's most promising child stars of the 1980s. From her debut in commercials to memorable roles in films like Jaws, The Revenge, and voicing Ducky in The Land Before Time, Judith captivated audiences with her natural charm and emotional depth. Her performances hinted at a bright future in acting that many believed would shine for years to come. But behind the scenes, Judith's life was far from the fairy tale. Struggling with an abusive and controlling father, her young years were marked by fear and hardship. Despite the pain, she kept her radiant smile on camera, never revealing the dark storm brewing at home. Tragically, on July 25, 1988, Judith and her mother were killed in a heartbreaking murder-suicide carried out by her father. Judith was only 10 years old. Her untimely death shocked Hollywood and fans worldwide, cutting short a talent that held so much promise. Judith Barcy remains a poignant reminder of the vulnerability behind the glamour, and her brief but brilliant career continues to touch the hearts of many. Judith's gravestone bears Ducky's famous catchphrase, a poignant reminder of the joy she brought to millions of children who never knew the darkness she faced at home. Her story remains a haunting reminder of the vulnerability of child stars.